I'm going to be reviewing Get Out of Your Own Way, A Skeptic's Guide to Growth and Fulfillment by Dave Hollis. In this video, you will discover whether you should read it too. Hi, I'm Linda and welcome to my YouTube channel, Better You Books, where I read and review books that help you to become a better version of yourself. In today's review of Get Out of Your Own Way, I will tell you more about the author, Dave Hollis, the format of the book, share with you my key insights and thoughts, also my favourite quotes, and then end with a recommendation of who this book would be best for, and also what my rating is out of 5. So keep watching till the end to find out what score I give it. I came across this book as I am a big fan of Rachel Hollis, Dave's wife. Okay, I'm slightly obsessed with her. I've read a couple of her books and I will review those in the near future. I was curious to see what Dave had to say, and also the title resonated with me, as I can definitely get in my own way. So to set the scene, let's put the clock back a few years. At this time, Rachel has written several books which have sold millions of copies. She's an in-demand public speaker and she also hosts her own motivational conferences as well, and she is going from strength to strength. Meanwhile, Dave is working in a senior leadership position at the Walt Disney Company. He hasn't done any personal development and he's actually a bit skeptical of everything that Rachel is doing. He's going through a bit of a career funk and he's also found himself drinking far too much. So he discovered that a gulf was forming between himself and Rachel and he was worried for the future of their marriage. Therefore, he decided to start therapy and he also dove into personal development and it changed his life. Dave's not a personal development expert. He's not a psychologist. He hasn't done a ton of research. He's just a normal person who has been on a self-improvement journey and he is now sharing the lessons that he has learnt through this book. This is a self-help book written through the lens of someone who once thought that self-help was for broken people. The book is divided into 19 lies that Dave once believed, and in doing so, he got in his own way. The book now sets out to debunk these lies, which include things like, a drink will make it better, my work is who I am, and failure means I'm weak. If you prefer listening to books rather than reading them, Dave actually read the book himself for Audible. I'm going to start with sharing the 3 key takeaways I got from reading this book. Naturally, this is very subjective, so you might have very different takeaways, but these are mine. Number 1, nobody is thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves. The first time I read this years ago, it was groundbreaking for me, and even though I already know it, it bears repetition because I don't always practice it. Dave also wrote, when you cast the net of whose opinions matter so broadly that it includes everyone, it dilutes the power of the opinions that actually do matter. This was really helpful to me because I was reading this book while I was also setting up my YouTube channel. And I found myself worrying about the opinions of people that I hardly know, while my close friends and family, whose opinions I actually do value, were being very supportive. Number 2, you don't have to pretend to have it all together. Dave used to think that he did, but he realised when he was more open with his feelings, it was beneficial for him both in his professional and personal life. And this is something I can relate to, as I used to think that I had to be happy all the time or nobody would want to hang out with me. But I've actually found when I've been more open about my feelings and shared more what I'm thinking with my friends, that I found they often have similar experiences too, and it's made me feel less alone and also it's deepened our relationship. However, this is something that I could improve on in my work life. And finally, number 3, define operating principles when working with new teams. Dave was at Disney 17 years, and in those years, he had 12 different teams. So he had to learn how to quickly engage with his team. So he came up with 10 operating principles, which said who he was, what he stood for, and what he expected from his team. And I thought this was a great idea and something I definitely want to try out the next time I'm managing a new team. I love quotes, so I decided to pick my favourite from the book. It was difficult to choose, but I came up with this one. A life of growth is a life of exhilarating discomfort. And I like this because I could relate it back to my own life. There have been times where I felt really nervous about something, perhaps before doing a big presentation at work for the first time. but I know that nervousness means that I am being challenged and I'm growing, and there's always an enormous sense of achievement afterwards. Get Out of Your Own Way is a gentle introduction to personal and professional development. There was one chapter I found really moving, which was about Dave and Rachel's adoption struggles, where I cried my eyes out. But in general, it was a very easygoing book to read, and I even laughed out loud a few times. I like first-person accounts as I find them more relatable than perhaps research-heavy books, which can sometimes seem a little dry. However, I think with first-person accounts, you need to be really careful not to take the words verbatim, because it is anecdotal and different people have different things that work for them. So personally, I like to take the bits that work for me and leave the bits that don't. I did find that I related to a lot of Dave's lies. However, I feel like there were too many. There's 19 lies in the book, and personally, I would have preferred less lies, but with more depth on each lie. This book didn't have any exercises like a lot of self-help books do, and I think there's pros and cons to that because it meant that it was a lighter book perhaps and easier to read, but I think some exercises would have been beneficial to have taken more actionable insights away from the book. The most kind of practical or actionable chapter of the book was actually the conclusion, and I feel like perhaps Dave felt he had a lot to say that didn't fit neatly into the book's format of 19 lies, so they all ended up in the conclusion, and it just felt like way too much information in a short space and a bit muddled. I can't end this review without also mentioning Rachel's best-selling book, Girl Wash Your Face. And the reason for this is because the formats of the two books is actually very similar, so it's inevitable that comparisons will be drawn. However, I do feel like both books offer something for different people. It depends whether you would like a male perspective or a female perspective, or if you would like to learn lessons from someone who used to be skeptical of self-help and had traditionally a fixed mindset, or whether you want to read something from someone who is literally the poster child for a growth mindset, which would be Rachel. Personally, I resonate with Rachel a lot more, but I have seen many comments online about people who feel the same about Dave. So I guess it's just a personal choice. I am giving this book 3.5 stars. I enjoyed reading it, and it was interesting to read a book from the perspective of a man, as I can wrongly assume sometimes that men don't worry about the same things that women do. However, I didn't find this book profound, as I'd already learnt a lot of the lessons before. However, I do feel that this book could have a much bigger impact on someone who is new to personal development. So I would recommend it for newbies, or for people who are skeptical of self-help, also for men, and for people who are already fans of the Hollis family. What do you think? Does this sound like a book that you would be interested in reading? Drop me a comment below and let me know. I've also added links to the book and more information about Dave in the description section. One thing I would highly recommend you check out is Tea Time with Noah, which is a short video series that Dave does where he tries to teach his 3-year-old daughter Noah more about personal development. Inevitably, it doesn't quite go to plan. However, Noah is the cutest child ever, so it's guaranteed to bring a smile to your face. Next week, I'm going to be reviewing Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. Spoiler alert, I loved it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please click subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be the first person to know about my future videos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.